The Florida Panthers get a huge road win in Toronto, take control of the Atlantic, and prove that once again, the Eastern Conference goes through South Florida.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're to our team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins, and you could do that all on FanDuel. So, Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show as the Florida Panthers came off a huge road win in Toronto to take full control of the Atlantic Division, a game that if you are watching this from a neutral perspective, that it's a game that Toronto needed more for if you really thought about it. And the fact that the Panthers, multiple times that there was a sense of control by the Leafs, the Panthers responded. The Leafs got the first goal, Panthers responded before the end of the first, and then after the Panthers scored 3 unanswered, the Toronto Maple Leafs got it down to a 3-2 deficit, and the Panthers they found a way to close it out and not play with their food this time. And here to break this down and more, it is a Friday, which means it's Fairbanks Friday. Nich Fairbanks is back, and Nick, I'm pumped about this win for the Panthers. And like I said, the Panthers did not play with their food this time.
No, but they got to go outside a little bit and, lay in the leaves a little bit and kind of just bat them around and, really had a good time out there, it looked like. Definitely had a much better showing and they looked tighter as a unit. So they could definitely take the last game as a learning experience and what not to do. And hopefully they can carry this forward for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And for the Panthers, with just how they were able to just get to the net front for them getting in Anthony Stolarz' kitchen. I mean, you really think about for this one. I mean, even though Carter Verhaeghe didn't get a point on the night, he was really one who was a lot faster to the pucks. And the fact that the Panthers didn't have the last change and they were matched with the Austin Matthews line, they played the assignment well once again. I mean, you think about Matthews, Marner, Nylander, all 10 shots on goal combined, and they still didn't find the back of the net. And like I said, every time the Leafs made some type of push, the Panthers responded. I had not mentioned the second goal of the game in the middle of the second period where Austin Matthews has a wraparound and then AJ Greer is just going through the gut and then gets checked, but still fights it off and still gets it to a trailing not Nate Schmidt, Niko Mikkola for his 5th goal of the season. Now two more to break that broke his career high for this one. But really, the story, another story of this one is just like the Panthers had two penalties at the beginning of the second period in Boston, and it really had them not create momentum for them. But this time around for them, they got their legs going, especially after the second PK that they had. Nico Sturm was outstanding, taking the opening draw of the PK, getting a shift at the end of one as well, and a key block for him. The Panther, and to think the first 12 minutes of that second period, Nick, 3 shots on goal for the Leafs while having 2 power plays in that. The Panthers not locked it down when they needed to, and to think that Toronto on the other side of things for special teams, it's a 5 forward unit that they're going out there, so a lot of speed there for them. But at the same time with the Panthers, even though they're missing some guys, their identity remained the same of just how they battled through the pucks and these 50-50 battles, and just goes to show 50-50 battles in strength over speed.
So Florida played very aggressive against the 5 forward power play tonight, and you could see that Toronto was very tentative to do anything like as far as like try to get down low on Bob. All they did was do some north-south stuff, passing. And then as far as like trying to get the puck to Matthews, it just wasn't, there was nothing there. If I remember correctly, Matthews only had maybe one shot and it went right into Bob's padding, right into the logo, and it was no danger. So I think the fact is that if you pressure and you don't really give them an option towards the net, the Leafs aren't going to be able to do anything. And they played very well tonight. As far as the 50-50 battles, much better than it was the last game. I mean,
Yeah.
you had Mikkola making amazing moves when John Tavares was on him. I remember one where Tavares was going to take the body, and Mikkola let him, but he also let the puck kind of go into his skates, and he was able to kind of like kick it right off the back of his skate to one of the Panther players, and they got out right away. So basically kind of like learning on the fly, understanding the team that you're playing and, the style that they want to play and not letting them be successful with it. So although the score was 3-2, I think the game was a little bit more distant than what the score dictated.
Yeah, this was a tight game. This was a close score game that the Panthers looked very comfortable in. And I'll save this one specific moment for the segment number 2 of when we thought the game was won for the Panthers. But going back to just how they fought off and just the 50-50s, I mean, the amount of times that Toronto tried laying a hit and the Panthers kept fighting it off. I mean, there was one where Jesper Boquist was going off the right wing, fought it off, kept the puck, and then still drove to the net to get a shot. I mean, the third goal of the game on the power play, Sam Bennett's second power play goal, Seth Jones was fighting for the puck right at the blue line. Scott Laughton was there to challenge him and then still keeping it in. And the thing is about Toronto, they were still a lot of the night, not moving their feet, a lot of puck watching. The first goal that they gave up, Mackie's coming up to crashing the net, and then Jake McCabe just allows Sam Bennett to easily get into the blue paint and then just knock it in. And then to the other one where Sam Reinhart is right at the goal line, a few handles, and then get Toronto not knowing what to do there, and then Sam Bennett is right there in the low slot for the one-timer for his second power play goal of the night. So it was really about just the fact that the Panthers were moving their feet and Toronto wasn't.
Yeah, and it's almost as if Sam Bennett has actually taken on more of the game himself without his usual line mate, Matthew Tkachuk. So you see him on the power play. You saw him at the end of the game trying to, get the puck out of the defensive zone with the 6-on-5. And you can kind of see where the coaching staff is kind of like they're starting to trust him a little bit more. I know I have my frustrations with him sometimes, and I mean, you probably have seen it. He likes to handle the puck a little bit too much. He doesn't like using his teammates. And I think that can cause some attempts being missed or some chances being missed. But other than that, his game has really started to come around, and he's become a much bigger factor later now in the season than he was earlier in the season. But just what this Panthers team is able to do against playoff caliber teams, they haven't lost a step, and it's quite amazing to see. I mean, what are they now, like 13-3 or 14-3, something
12,
like that?
4-1 against playoff teams that they faced in the last 2 years.
Okay, so it's just that's remember a time when the Panthers couldn't do that. They couldn't beat the top competition to show that they deserve to be, part of that. And then they couldn't beat the teams that, they should beat. There's no issues with that anymore. This team knows what it is. They know what they need to do, and every night they expect to win.
Yeah. And that truly on Thursday night in that win for them was a true identity type of win for the Florida Panthers. It was just one that we've seen so many times before on just how they've been able to just suffocate and just be comfortable whenever the opposition does have their 6-on-5 and just winning draws, meeting them at the blue line, clearing, and just inability to allow the opposing goaltender to at least get off the ice for a longer period of time. So that's another thing that we got to be hella impressed with this win, and just why I'm so pumped about it as well. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and the moment where we knew the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Trade Coffee. And if you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. But I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee, know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. I took their quiz, and in under a minute, they matched me with a roast that was fresh, smelled incredible, and tastes even better. The subscription makes it so easy. No more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever is on the shelf. And if you love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonHL for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonNHL. Also, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eyes on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. It's easy and fast. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. You can do that all on FanDuel. Segment 2 here on this Friday, March 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday as the Florida Panthers defeat the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 3-2 on the road. Sergei Bobrovsky, 424th win, now all alone inside the top 10, passing Tony Esposito, now just contributing more to his Hall of Fame legacy for him. So big congratulations to Sergei Bobrovsky on reaching the top 10 for him. So 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers here. Some honorable mentions. Carter Verhaeghe, Nico Sturm are 2 of them because they were just outstanding. Don't let the box score fool you for how well they actually played. Number 3, I'm going to go with AJ Greer. Just agitating the opposition, was taken down on a play and even got a roughing call called against them for early in the game, but really was a big part of that second goal for the Florida Panthers there. Mackie Samoskevich is my second one, 2 assists, 1 on the backdoor to Bennett, and even on the second goal for the Panthers. Early in that power play, he had an errant pass that Calle Yarncrook broke up, but then the Panthers still recovered. They were still able to get the puck down low right before Bennett scored, and even drew a penalty on former Panther Oliver Ekman-Larsson when that second line crashed the net. OEL threw a punch, and Mackie Samoskevich got away with a slash there. But hey, it benefited the Panthers. They're drawing that penalty on OEL. Number 2 and number 1, Sam Bennett, 2 power play goals, contribution to Benny's buddies, 21st and 22nd goals of the season for him, 4 total shots on goal, and a big block at the end with the 6-on-5 with 17 seconds left, and then drawing an offside after that. So big game by Sam Bennett once again for him, and winning a lot of his battles, just play driving once again for him. So those are my 3 stars of the game. How about yours, Nick?
So I actually have Mr. 424 as my 3rd star, Mr. Sergei Bobrovsky. I thought he was solid tonight outside of that Domi goal that he gave up. I just think it snuck up on him, and it is what it is. But I felt he was steady throughout the game. He made the stops when he had to, and he stopped play when the Panthers were under pressure. And that's really what you need your goaltender to do. If this was a few years ago when Bob was not Bob, he was going to let that puck go and try to have them play it and get it out of the zone. But sometimes you just need the goaltender to just take it in, get a break, get a line change, and you're set. My second star is Seth Jones. Not only because he was able to save that puck from, crossing the blue line, for it to be offside, he made some plays tonight defensively that I didn't know he was capable of, nor did I think he was going to be fast enough to do it. So I think there was one where he was behind the net and he was, fishing for the puck. He didn't win it, but immediately he went right to the front of the net, and I believe Nylander was there, ready for a shot. He put a stick right in the in the way of that shot, and it just floated right into Bobrovsky's glove. So I can't say there would be a lot of defensemen on this team that could actually cover that much ground or that much ice in that little time to make a play like that. So I have to give him his flowers, and he's looked great since he's been in Florida. And obviously, first star has to be Sam Bennett. You knew when he was on the ice. The Leafs knew when he was on the ice, and on top of that, he was. I know I criticized him in the last segment for not passing, but whenever he's got the puck, it's going to get to the net, and that's really what you need. And lucky for him tonight, two of those went in. The backdoor, power play goal, and then a little bit of reverse roll, on the power play where Sam Reinhart's below the blue line, or I'm sorry, the red line, and throwing sauce, into the slot. So good on them for kind of changing the core there. But Sam Bennett was probably the main reason why this game was 3-2.
Yeah, the shots for percentage from every line besides the third line was over 63% throughout the game. So a lot of the shot share from every line just rolling. And also, you mentioned Seth Jones's defensive play. There was this one-timer chance that he had. I'm going for an offensive chance first.
Mm-hmm.
That Verhaeghe was just driving to the middle and then just caught Anthony Stolarz off guard. And then towards the end on the 6-on-5, I forget who he pinned in the corner, and then stood there held him for 1 or 2 seconds and just allowed Anton Lundell to easily support the puck and get the puck out of the zone. So that's the strength that you're talking about when it comes to someone like Seth Jones on your hockey team, that why you make a move like this to bring him in. And hey, sometimes we look at him with the size and just sometimes are amazed with how fast he can skate. But hey, thankfully, with the Panthers having multiple guys with long reaches, we've been speaking about Niko Mikkola for over a year, but now it's another guy to the mix for the Panthers now. That is just a luxury that this Florida Panthers team continues to have. The moment where we knew the game was won, it was about 3 minutes left, and when Toronto couldn't get into the zone comfortably, Anthony Stolarz was skating a little bit up near the hashes, then back, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs couldn't necessarily get a good handle of the puck into the offensive zone. We saw a timeout. The Panthers kept their same guys from before the timeout on the ice. So of course, that's your closing lineup for them, while Toronto had theirs. But I just knew the fact that it took long for them to get Anthony Stolarz off in crunch time, knowing how big of a swing this game was going to be, even when we knew coming in. That's where I knew the game was won for the Panthers. How about you?
So I would say probably much earlier than that. I was really confident, probably with 7 minutes left to go in the second period, where that fourth line chips the puck in. I think it was Greer and Sturm, I believe, went in after the puck, or maybe it was Gadjevich that went in. And as soon as they win that puck, it's going right to Mikkola, and he just buries it. I think the fact that the Panthers showed their identity not only in that play, but that their defense can just jump up in the play, and they're a threat as well. I think the fact that they could do that and they were not allowing Toronto to do that at all. Toronto had no answer for that. To me, was like, okay, they got this now. They're going to lock this down. If they get another one, that's great. But after Mikkola scored, I think that kind of broke a little bit of the Leafs off a little bit, and we saw the end result.
Yeah, and with that goal coming just a few minutes before the end of the second, I mean, yeah, we've seen the Panthers lose third period leads this season after going almost 2 years without losing in regulation, and now we've seen it three times this year. We would hope that watching this that okay, is it really going to be back to back games where the Panthers are going to just no, even though they got it to one,
Thankfully.
and to think that it's been since December of back to back that where the last time they had back to back losses in regulation. So this is truly helping them with continuously banking the points, still getting into a really good spot. And just knowing that they're doing this once again without certain guys in the lineup, and just say, and Paul Maurice spoke about how the system's the same, but they are just not as beefy for their lineup. Just paraphrasing a little bit, but just knowing that the team knows the systems in place for them, even though Paul Maurice did acknowledge, hey, we are better without Matthew Tkachuk. So there's no denying that. But hey, the Panthers kept them outside, kept them with good gaps, and it results in just the Panthers continuously finding ways to win hockey games over and over again. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to flip the page and get to the back-to-back this weekend in Montreal and on Long Island. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining, out, shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. There's some surprising insights. And when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first order. Segment 3 here on this Friday, March 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, I have an odd to share with you here on the show. So, prior to tonight's game in Toronto, Money Puck had the Panthers, if they were to win in regulation, a 74.6% chance in winning the division now with this win. This was humongous.
Like it. Yep.
This was a I tweeted it saying that this was a mature type of win for that, and knowing that it's in a in a place where you know they call it the Mecca of hockey in Toronto for that, for whatever that is worth, and the fact that the Panthers, defending champs, knowing that they are they have a target on their back, this was no issue for them.
It really wasn't, and I'm glad you brought that odd up, because if you look at the standings now, Florida now is 4 points ahead of Toronto. Same games played, or Florida has one more game played, sorry, and they gained a point on Tampa Bay. So they increased their stranglehold on the division. So yeah, I would probably buy those odds at 74%. But at the same time, we still have to play the Leafs 2 more times.
Yep.
So if everything stays status quo until those 2 games, might have some fireworks at the end of the season. I hope we don't. I hope the division's done with, and we can just put the first seed in our back pocket. But you have to take care of the games that are important, and also that can really separate you in the playoff run. I mean, look at 2 years ago. They got in barely. They beat a Boston team, best ever. They went on a cup run. Last year, I think they won the division on the last day of the season,
Mm-hmm.
and now they have a chance to actually go in and actually win the division outright before the end of the season and maybe rest a little bit. So, not saying they're going to, because guess what? If you start missing games, you get out of rhythm, things like that. But I think they have this right now. But as in life, anything can change.
I did not include this in yesterday's show, but I tweeted this morning. The Panthers came in with the 13th hardest remaining schedule in the NHL. Now they have 16 games left. 9 of them are in the division, and 13 of them are against teams within 5 points of a playoff spot. So, game 1 of that 17, check.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great thing. But hey, the Panthers have to move on, and now they go into Montreal on Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, but also in the US, it's on NHL Network. So plan accordingly. If you are an out of region Panthers fan, it will not be available on ESPN Plus. So plan accordingly there. And then they'll be playing the New York Islanders on the second end of a back to back. It's funny. We spoke about back-to-back losses in regulation. We haven't seen that since late December, and one of those games happened to be where I hate to accuse a team of not caring, but that game in December against Montreal, it was probably the game that you could look at and say the Panthers just were not inspired for that one. Jakub Dobich made his debut. Panthers dropped that game 4-0, and it really was the Panthers just not having their skates on for this one. And New York has been an interesting season series for them. It's been a score of final of 6-3, but the Panthers have had multiple three goal deficits in both games for them, and then resulting in both of them in a 6-3 final for them. Carter Hagee got a hat trick in the last go round, and then the first time around, Mackie Samoskevich got his first goal against the New York Islanders on the road right before they went to Finland. So no Matt Barzal for the season for New York. Montreal, a missed opportunity at the end of their road trip in Seattle, which I don't know if you saw this, Nick. Brandon Montour scored
Yeah, I saw
4
that.
seconds into overtime, the fastest overtime goal in NHL history. But that's a big road point that the Montreal Canadiens lost as they are just fighting with the Torontos, the Ottawas of the world. Ottawa won tonight against Boston at home. So that's a big road point that the Habs lost. And listen, they didn't really make moves at the deadline, but they're ahead of schedule. They don't when you are ahead of schedule, you want to give your team a chance for at least a playoff race and give them a little bit of experience. So I can understand why Kent Hughes made the moves that he made.
Definitely. And just looking at the standings right now, Montreal's only a point out. How many of us probably picked them to be a lottery pick again this year? I know they got some talent. I know they got some talent, coming up and everything, and they're starting to shine. But at the same time, they still have a lot of question marks, and we'll see if they pan out. So it is a big game. It is a big game for playoff implications because if Montreal wins in regulation, they could jump into that second spot. And
Mm-hmm.
if the playoffs ended or if the season ended on Saturday, they would be playing the Capitals.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be an interesting little series there. And then you look at the New York Islanders, who are 5 points out and actually have a game or two in hand on the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Ottawa Senators. That team, I don't know what they're doing. I really don't. Unfortunately, they can't score goals. They score goals. They can't get good goaltending. They get good goaltending. It's just it's a lot of up and down with them. They'll lose 5 or 6 straight, and then they'll go on a heater and win 7 or 8 straight. It's just there's no consistency. The only consistency they have is not being consistent right now. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, they had a
so
7-game winning streak right before the Panthers ended it last go around.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm real broken up about that. Um, I yeah, I have a special place for the Islanders in my heart, and most Panther fans should. In from 2016, but I will say this: two winnable games this weekend. If you were to win one of them, I want to win Montreal. I want
Mhm.
to make sure that you take care of business with a team that's trying to get in, that's hungrier probably than probably a team that's probably not going to show you a concerted effort for a full 60 minutes that you can take advantage of. So let's win in Montreal. Have Bob start that game and then get Vanacek or Vanacek on Sunday.
Yeah, and Yaroslavsky, he's hot lately as well.
Hmm.
5 points in the last two, and then also had a 2-point game at home against Buffalo. And then they're just late February, he was on a 4-game point streak. So he is starting to really get in into his development there. So the kids are learning or how to adjust to the NHL game. So going to be interesting to see how he carries that over to this matchup against the defending champs. No Caden Gooley, uh, Kirby Doc's still out. Joel Armia is
Yep.
day to day. So those are some of the injuries for the Montreal Canadiens. And like I mentioned, no Matthew Barzal. He's been out for a while. Still no Simeon Varlamov. Oh, did you know? Early in the week, Adam Boquist was playing center for the New York
Yep.
Islanders. I don't know if you saw that. So
That's how deep they are right now
yeah.
with all the injuries. They gotta. Oh, it's giving me I don't know, panic attack right now thinking about who was it? We had we call him Prius.
Oh,
Uh
Mark Pysyk.
yeah, Mark Pysyk on the wing on the fourth line. Oh, I don't miss those days. I love Mark Pysyk, but I don't miss those days.
Yeah. And like you said, it's confusing what the Islanders are doing. Yeah, they traded Brock Nelson, but maybe they could have done more with getting like something for possibly a Kyle Palmieri or JG Pajot for them. It's just like, and there was actually a report earlier today about them possibly buying out Pierre Engvall. It's going to be a very cheap buyout for them, but it's a long-term contract that like just under $4 million for a depth player. So that just continues to show the amount of missteps that Lou Lamoriello has done during his tenure. So we'll see how the Panthers manage this back to back for them in both Montreal and New York. Two, like you said, two very winnable games, and really an opportunity for them to really put a stranglehold after an outstanding night. I can't emphasize that enough. An outstanding night tonight in Toronto. But Nick, I want to thank you so much. You have a final thought?
We want Florida. That's my final thought.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you, my friend.
Fun as always. Glad we could celebrate a Panthers win tonight against a division foe and possible playoff foe coming up. But you guys can follow me on X at Prudential0. And Armando, I look forward to next week.
Absolutely. See you next week. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.